Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speedrun Insider. I'm your host, CJitsallGewd. Thank you so much for listening this week and every other week that you've listened. Your support has really meant a lot, and we're going to keep making the show. You guys keep listening to it, so thank you very much. I'd like to introduce you to another exciting guest. As always, they're all exciting, aren't they? They're all exciting. This one's pretty interesting. I've been had this one circled on my calendar for a little while. Been looking for the best time to get him on. He's the best content creator you're not watching. The man who bends Azure dreams to his will. He who has stared into the abyss and had the abyss stare back. He is Abyssoft. How are you doing, my friend?
Fantastic. Love the intro as well.
Hey, listen, I try. You know?
Success.
I spend like a uncomfortable amount of time making sure that I find little tidbits to put in the intro, so.
Oh, well done. The little niche part got me all excited.
There you go, man. Well, listen, hey, tell the people who you really are. Give them a better idea.
Yeah, so I'm Abyssoft, Abyss, or Christian, however you guys want to go about talking to me, calling me. I make YouTube content. I've been doing this for, oh man. So if you want to, since 2006, I've been making YouTube content. So my original channels are all gone. As any angsty teen who ages into their late 20s, they realize, man, that stuff I did 10, 15 years ago was really cringe. Let's get rid of that. So those channels are just completely gone. You can't find them anymore. And then I never really that was more like in high school. And then once I got to college, I pretty much just stopped making content and focused on, college and career and whatnot. And now that I've had some career advancement and free time, I'm finding I have more time for content. So I started making videos, I'd say about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, like full on edited videos. And it's went from there with the YouTube channel. I'm trying to remember when I uploaded the Earthbound World Record Progression, because that's the first real video I put effort into.
That would have been February or January?
Yeah, so almost a
February
year.
20th was it the premiere, so.
Perfect. So yeah, just under a year ago, but I'd had made a few videos before that while I was still running some other like my podcast and whatnot. So that stuff, I found out that hey, I don't have time to run a full podcast every week and do video editing. It's too much work for one person. So I made the decision to just do video editing, and it's one I'm not regretting at all, because I found YouTube growth is so much. I don't want to say easier, because it's definitely not easy, but it's a lot less difficult than Twitch growth.
Yeah, I feel like you can catch fire on YouTube in a way that you really can't do that on Twitch. There's more kindling, I would say, on the YouTube side of things. It's interesting you mentioned the podcast thing. CC and Squidbird, who makes all the music for Speed Docs, they had a podcast on the YouTube channel called the Gold Split Podcast. It was a little different than what we do over here. They kind of riffed, and it was more of a fun conversation and really fun podcast, just different than what we do now. And it was on the Speed Docs YouTube channel. And the day that we took them down, or the week that we took them down, all of our videos grew twice in size. Yep. Instantly. It was once we got rid of the podcast, the channel took off. And it was really bizarre. You'd think having more content would help you, but not in that case.
No, I noticed the exact same thing. The few videos I had up when I privated everything, they got an immediate bump in traffic. I don't know if the algorithm just said, hey, he's got content that people are let me rephrase that. So I think what actually happened was the amount of content that YouTube was actively circulating shrunk. And then the content that remained actually had a decent retention time, because the podcast was only getting watched mostly by people that that didn't watch it live, for my viewers anyway. So it wasn't getting many views. It was just a place people could, because it took place on Twitch for me. And then I'd upload to YouTube after. So it was one of those things where I think the algorithm just saw it oh, well, this channel's got X amount of content, and now it's a lot smaller. So, and the stuff that remains has a decent retention time. So let's just start promoting it. Because I found and you can see this on a lot of the one-hit wonder YouTube channels where they'll have a bunch of content that struggles to get views. It's in like the 500 to 1,000 range. And then they'll have one video that the algorithm just picks up and blows up. But the rest of their content doesn't get that bump. Their next video will get some of that bump, but all their previous stuff just doesn't seem to get there. So I try to focus, and that's one of the, since I noticed that, I try to focus my content on stuff that's not relevant to a certain period of time. I try to focus it on something that has rewatch value later on, like the Star Wars movies from 1970, whatever. You can just pick those up and watch them, and they're awesome. You can't do that. Like who wants to watch the news from October 31st, 1979? No one wants that content. But like stories and narratives that take place outside of like a context, regardless of year. I really didn't phrase that the best, but I think people are understanding what I'm trying to articulate. That you can just watch that over and over, or just watch it once, regardless of when you find it. And I think that's what makes all this stuff that we create really last.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely there's a term for when you're writing for a newspaper. There's some stuff that's just evergreen, right? It's just like good all the time.
Yeah.
As opposed to stuff that's like super timely, like the news for Philadelphia in 1979. Not super interesting. I do actually go back and watch old news if I can find it, because I do find like as a person that's interested in the news and the history of like that kind of stuff, I do find it vaguely interesting. But like you said, I'm like a minority. I mean, I'm not the target of that. No one else is going back to look at the news from, some broadcast from the 90s that's shot on Super VHS and, so totally understand. We did put the cart a little bit before the horse here. I want to go back to how you discovered speedrunning and what your entry into the hobby was.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is an interesting question. So it's not typical of what most people say how they discovered speedrunning. So I found it through one of those, like I knew it was a thing, but I never really got interested in it until I saw one of those really terrible Facebook videos of the Super Mario Bros. Record, where like they've taken the video wholesale from someone. It was Darbian's video, actually. It was one of his records. The uploader had just taken it, and of course the comment section was atrocious. People were saying like, "Oh, I beat this faster," and blah blah blah. But whoever had done it had like added up they'd edited in a bunch of stuff that was not true about the run at all. And I was watching it and I thought that's kind of cool. So then I did what everyone does once they see that stuff. They Googled Super Mario Bros. Record, and voila, speedrun.com. So from there, I looked at some other stuff. Looked up Super Mario 64 record, saw Cheese had it at the time. And this is back when I ran my very first podcast, the Investigates podcast. So I said, well, this seems like a cool topic to do an episode on. So I had contacted Cheese and Darbian and had them both on for an episode. And then after that, I was kind of just hooked. The Investigates podcast kind of stopped being a thing, and I just started making exclusively a speedrunning podcast. And I picked up the controller from there. Noticed that a game I played a lot as a kid didn't have any runs or even a leaderboard on speedrun.com. So me and a friend just started playing it to just get it on there, and it sort of went from there.
Yeah, it's really funny because I hate those videos. But if it got you to look up the thing, it totally kind of worked, right? Because you watched the video, and then you kind of watched it all the way through, you got into the comments, and then you looked it up, so it kind of did what it set out to do. I think that those videos are also, I mean, I know that they are, but they're meant to, like, get you to watch the channel or whatever, the Facebook page, and it's like, who the hell cares about that, It's like said garbage, wet garbage. There's the new thing right now with that is that they take gameplay of Fall Guys, and they'll zoom it in so you can't see the person's Twitch layout or anything, and they just zoom in on it, so it's like, oh god damn, it's so bad. Just really just low tier content. It's really frustrating too, because as someone that spends a lot of time working on like the visual fidelity of what we make, it's like, man, this took like 5 minutes. I could have made this better than 10. It's like, come on. Like,
no, I have those same gripes. Yep.
Or at least crop the damn thing. If you're gonna steal, I mean, just crop it instead of zooming in. Zooming in so bad. Put a border around it. Anyway, so and that game was it Power Rangers? Is the game?
No, it was Azure Dreams. That
Oh,
was the
it
first
is
one.
Azure
Yep.
Dreams.
Yep.
I
For
even
Game Boy
said that in
Color.
the freaking intro. Yeah.
Yep. For Game Boy Color.
What is this game? Tell me
Okay.
tell me about this
so
game.
There's two versions of it. Some people are familiar with the PlayStation 1 version, and some people are familiar with the Game Boy Color version. The Game Boy Color version did not have a leaderboard when I started running it. The PlayStation version did, so I messaged a couple of the PlayStation guys like, hey, I'm going to run this on Game Boy Color, and I know the games aren't exactly the same, but they have a lot of overlap. So is there anything you guys could, like, tips you could give me? So they gave me a few tips. It turned out that, like, the way the games are played at a speedrunning level, it matters enough that the tips they gave me didn't really help. So the first run I didn't even finish. It was 8.5 hours, and I said, well, I do have to work tomorrow, so this is going to have to be postponed.
DNF.
Yep, DNF. So I stopped doing that run. Then I think my friend, I can't remember who had the leaderboard would say, but I can't remember if it was me or Gareman who had the next run, the official first run on the leaderboard.
According to your statistics on the Speedrun.com page, it was it Gareman 3?
Yep.
No.
So he had the first run then, and he knew a bit more about the game because he's the one that owned the game when we were kids. I just borrowed it from him and played it. So he knew more. He exploited what he could exploit. We didn't really have any exploits in the first game, and there's a lot to explain here. So like Azure Dreams is just a 2D dungeon crawler. It's like Diablo 2 meets Pokemon on the Game Boy Color. That's the best way to explain it. So you're dungeon crawling. You're going up a tower instead of down into a dungeon. And the game ends when you beat the final boss. Well, actually, it ends after like some brief cutscenes after you beat the final boss because there is still some user input there. But you've got some monsters with you that you can level up and fuse together and all this stuff. But we've just broken the game to a point where we don't have to play any of the game's mechanics. We don't level our monsters up. We actually just put them in our item bag while we're running up because they'll just get us killed if they're out trying to fight stuff. We avoid enemies and we scumbag the AI on the boss to get a victory. The AI, that's really funny. The AI on the boss, because you fight the same boss both times. His name's Gantz. You fight him on floor 20.
Just books.
Yeah, floor 20. Say that one 3 times fast. You fight him on floor 20, and he gets angry and teleports away when you beat him. Then you fight him again on floor 30. The second time you fight him, he's more powerful and he's got some more powerful minions with him. But if you do this strategy, it has like a 99% success rate because Gantz is only programmed to teleport to attack the player. So if you can just trap him in a corner and then summon one of your guys to block him from escaping, he'll never attack them. And your level 1 guy will just murder this level 40 boss 1 damage at a time. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. So, and it gets even worse because if you walk off screen, the game stops playing the combat text, so it doesn't do the math. It just says your monster is fighting, your monster is fighting. So you can just do that. And the only chance you have of losing at that point is if one of the additional monsters decides to walk down to where you've kited Gantz and kill you. That's really it. And there's even strategies to deal with that if you maneuver properly. So the game's absolutely broken beyond what the developers wanted. And it's pretty hilarious. But it's all RNG. You should not run that game if you do not like resetting, I'd say 95% of your runs. It's very RNG heavy. We do a weekly seed of it as well, like a de-randomized seed. So everyone gets the same seed and runs.
Right.
So we do those sorts of things. I think they're working on some tournaments coming up because the PS1 game is quite active on speed gaming. And I think they're trying to get support for the Game Boy Color game. So something to look out for. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, the first times were like 4 hours, and then now it's down to, almost under 20 minutes, which is
sub 20 will happen someday.
Someday, yeah. That's kind of a kooky sort of game. It's actually a really cool story for a little speedy game like this.
Yep.
All right. So after Azure Dreams, after you were finished setting the Azure Dream world on fire, where did you turn your attention to?
I got really interested in the Power Ranger games, like all of them. I think the only one I haven't done a run for from Super Nintendo back is the Power Rangers, the movie on Super Nintendo.
You should be ashamed.
I know. I don't know if it's got a better soundtrack than just the regular Power Rangers game, but they're both like S-tier soundtracks, in my opinion. They're just phenomenal music.
So there's a SNES version, right? There's a Genesis version.
Yep.
There's the fighting one.
Fighting edition. Yep.
And then there's the movie one for the NES. SNES.
Yep. Yeah. So I've done runs of the fighting edition on Genesis and on SNES. I got to top 3 at one point. I was top 3 or top 4 in. I think I was top 3 because I bopped Ludo, and I think that got me 3rd. And that was the last PB I had in the Super Nintendo game. And then a bunch of people have beat me since then. Was Wario? I think he had record at one point, and now I think Murnite has it. And then I played a bunch on the Genesis, and I didn't like the Genesis ones that much because the strategy in the Genesis fighting game was just double tap dash press A, double tap dash press A, because the monsters the AI didn't know how to deal with that. So you just hope to get good RNG and hope that Madam Woe doesn't kill your run. It's just sort of the same thing for the fighting game on the Super Nintendo, which is double tap dash, or throw certain monsters, certain enemies you had to throw. It's like not really much strategy there, except just pray that your button presses don't get RNG'd out. Very repetitive. So I didn't run those ones for long. And then I thought about like running more Power Rangers game just to get a time on every leaderboard, but there have been a lot released since then, more than I thought there was. So I gave up on that. And I think from there I played Mario Kart 8.
I like that game a lot.
It's a fantastic game. It's a pretty good run. It's not super hard to learn I was running the Nitro tracks, I think.
Yeah.
Not super hard to learn that run. Time trials is another thing. Like the time trial strategies are like
oh yeah, no, the IL boards are
yeah.
You can't. Don't go
Those
in
are
there.
Nuts. But like the community was super cool. I had a few guys like partner up to try and teach me how to do the stuff on the tracks, which was pretty cool. Just like, here's my friend code, I'll show you. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And that was super interesting. But I didn't stick at that for long. I think I got top 30 in that game, and then like I was recording it by pointing my webcam at my Switch, so it was like it's not the best quality of recording. And that really bothered me, so I stopped there. And then I think I tried like I'm learning Super Mario RPG right now. It's taking a very long time to learn, mostly because I can't get through super jumps. I'm terrible at them. And there's a few other things like I've looked at learning as well, but I haven't been streaming much. Like I'll stream some Fall Guys stuff at night for like an hour here and there, just because it's so busy to edit videos.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about that. We kind of covered your speedrunning history, I guess. We talked about already about, how the channel came to be. You had another podcast, you started focusing on speedrunning content. So you made a bunch of videos recently, and it might not be that recent by the time the podcast comes out, but
recent at time of recording.
Yeah, recent in 2020, you did a whole series about Mario Kart 64.
Yes.
I think it was specifically that game. Now, that game got broken wide open because they found some new stuff. There was a great kind of back and forth earlier in the year with Burbank and, is it the other one, Matthias?
Matthias Roostemeyer.
Matthias, yeah. And so that was really cool. And then there was, Abney doing Abney things. There was the other Weather Tanko that he did, a third one, I think, this year. He got, like, literally as of the time of this recording, he just got the skips world record by 0.7 seconds. Like, just happened while we were recording.
Yep, thanks to that Rainbow Road Gold split.
Yeah, it saved like 20 seconds. I'm a big Mario Kart fan. I was like a casual fan. I've speedrun and Mario Kart 64, and I'm so slow they have to time me with a calendar. But I'm interested in how you pick the subjects of your videos, because more recently, like you had the This Week in Speedrunning thing, and you can see that, and you have some other content on the channel, but your biggest recent memory, you have the Earthbound video, and I'm just gonna talk about specific videos.
Okay.
Because it doesn't seem super conducive to talk about like every Zelda speedrun in the same kind of way that we're going to talk about some of your other content.
Yeah, we can talk about that video series as well.
Yeah. So we have Earthbound, we have the I'm going from memory, but I have my notes in front of me.
Okay.
Does speedrunning need democracy?
Yep.
Then you shot a hole in the wall with the Diddy Kong racing video, which was an hour.
That was a fun
just
one.
like the Earthbound video was just under an hour.
Yep.
Then you started this Mario Kart series, of which I believe there's 4 videos. There's the Rivals one.
Yep.
There's the oldest records ever. There's the man who changed Mario Kart 64 forever, and then the other one, which these are in no particular order because my memory is the shits. The impossible odds for a perfect Mario Kart 64 speedrun. So, how do you pick these games? There's sort of a thread here, but I'm interested in what your process is.
All right, let me go. I got my YouTube channel up here, so let's have a look.
That makes one of us.
Yeah. When I did the first one, like I really did, like after I ended the This Week in Speedrunning podcast, was I started making a video about Lack Attack 24's sweep of the Zelda 1 leaderboards, because I saw a post about it on Speedrun, or on r/speedrun, and I followed Lack for a bit, and I thought that's really cool. So I started looking at it, and I said, well, there might be a video to be made here. I said, I think this is like a narrative that you could string together to make it pretty hype. And I wanted to stretch my, I guess, video editing muscles and how to throw a narrative together. So I started on that, and I thought I could fit it in one video. But once I got to making it, I thought, like, man, there are a lot of threads to sew here. And it ended up getting split into 3 parts. So I broke the leaderboard apart a little bit. And that honestly is my biggest regret about that video, is that video should have been done in 1 video, not 3. I think I made a mistake with that. My audio quality wasn't the best in that video. If I was ever going to remake a video that I've ever done, that would be the one to do it, because I think that story deserves better. Not like at the time, like it was obviously my first attempt at a big project, so like I was happy with it at the time. But as like I've gotten better at this, or maybe people disagree and think that I've gotten worse, but as I've learned more about this process, I think 100% that should have been put into 1 video.
Right.
I should have focused on certain records over other ones, because there's something like 13 or 14 records in that video, and to explain the routes for all of them, and like I'm looking at it right now, it's if you watch it all, it's like a 34 minute affair. It's like you can't really explain the routes for all of those, even though some have some overlap. So that was like my first attempt at that. I never speedran Zelda 1. I've done some randomizer stuff for A Link to the Past, but grew up as a Nintendo kid, so it's pretty easy to just like, oh man, this game's pretty cool. And there's also like the market research I do. Not so much for that video, but we'll talk a bit about that as we move forward through this.
Yeah, I did want to jump in really quick.
Okay.
I will say 2 things. One, it resonates with me when you say that you would go back and remake it. I think that there's a beauty in the fact that you can't edit videos once they're already up, because if you could, there'd be exactly 1 video on the Speed Docs channel, because I would just constantly re-edit it. I would have no time for new projects.
Yeah.
You know, art is never finished, it's just abandoned.
Yep.
So it's like you learn and then you move on.
Yeah, no, I like that point of view, because it's like, let me see my mistakes.
Yeah.
Let me show them to the people so they can see, like, because I get those comments all the time on like my newer stuff where it's like, you've done so much better from like X video that I watched before. Like, I came here from the recommended section of this video that you made, and like I can tell there's been like an increase in quality. It's like, I love hearing that. Keep telling me that.
Yeah. Well, it's like for us, it's like, yeah, you guys, our videos are so much better than they were 2 years ago. It's like, God, I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. And like,
man, there are people that make the same fucking video every time, that they never improve, and they constantly just make. And when I say they make the same video, they don't ever do anything different. It's just, all right, we're making gingerbread men. That's it. It's a cookie cutter. It's the same thing. But you could put anyone in that video, and it'd be the same fucking thing. Yep. There are content creators in this genre that are like that, but it's like but it's cool because it's like, yeah, well, you know what you're gonna get. You're not gonna go back in the back catalog and find something that's like awful, right? Because they've been making the same. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but you could have been so much better. You know, how did you not grow at all? So anyway,
Yep.
that's me ripping.
No. Interrupt whenever you want.
And so after you did the lack attack thing, which I do think is an interesting thing, that you broke it up into multiple parts. I do think it probably should have been one video. It probably would have done.
Yep.
It probably would have. It's harder, but it probably. I guess the only other thing is, it would have taken longer to make, right? Because video, that project must have taken a few months. So it's kind of like you put a little bit out, you put a little bit out, you put a little bit out. That part's nice. I wish I could do that. But ultimately, it probably would have been better as one part. And then I
got all these ideas though, like as you can see with that video, like I uploaded the top 10 hardest SNES runs in the middle of it, because like I'm making, and that's probably my biggest problem is I'll get making a video and it's like, oh man, I just had an idea. And it's like, oh wait, I'm already working on something. What do I do? And then I knew I could get like the top 10 speedrun video was like 23 minutes long, and I think it took me like a week and a half to do. Just because like that kind of, I don't know what gave me the itch to do that, but it was just like, I think I could make a video here. And I didn't like the top 10 sort of format of stuff. You'll notice that's the only one on my channel. I didn't like that. I think the video is fine. I think I did fine on the video, but it's just one of those things. It's like I wasn't making a narrative. I was just telling people like, this is the fact. And I didn't like that. It was more like reporting on like what I thought than like trying to get people engaged with a narrative or a story I'm telling. So that kind of bothered me with that one. I might make another top 10, but I probably not. I don't know.
So Earthbound.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, this one came about. Where was I with this one? You can ask like any of the Earthbound streamers, Doc, Sirium, James, or Hannibal. Like, who was the biggest stream monster in their streams? Me. I was active in all of them because it was highly competitive at the time. They were all grinding for world record. There was a leaderboard sweep about to happen, and I said, well, there's definitely like some cool stuff here. So I dug into the history of Earthbound a little bit, because just before like this video came out, I want to say a few months before that, they found the Onet skip, or I should say it was released by Pirohiko, a Japanese tasser of the game. And that broke the game wide open. Like, you can see, even if you don't watch the video, just go look at the statistics on the leaderboard for the 80% run. And it cuts out like so much time. Andy gets like the first run Andy completed with that skip was like world record sub hour by like a ton of time. And then it just kept going from there and there and there. They routed it in, got better RNG. It was phenomenal. And the way that game was broken over the last 15 years was just like, once I started reading about it, I'm like, this video wrote itself. Like, it's like, here's the story of Earthbound. Someone speedran the game, and like, I couldn't find much about the stuff in Japan that it's on. I can't read Japanese for one. It's on Nico Nico, which is terrible for any kind of video preservation. So even the runs I did find like had no video left. So, and I didn't know what category they were for, if it followed the same rules. So that's why I started with the Mickey Mage run from AGDQ with that video. But if you look at the history itself of Earthbound, it goes like this. The category was ran with the tech available until the RNG was grinded down to a point where it got, I don't want to say boring to run, but it would have been like, all right, we're rolling a slot machine. Then a new skip is found. It's like, awesome. People are going to run this again. And then it goes to the point where it gets grinded down. Then a new skip is found and it's grinded down. That's like the history of Earthbound. It would do that every few years. Like, something new would get found. So the runners would just start attacking the category again. And it went like that. Between the cliff skips in Tucson or just better cliff skips found in Winters. It was just that video really wrote itself. My only complaint that's my first world record progression. My only complaint with that one is I spoke way too fast. That's like, I'm from the East Coast of Canada originally. It's like, anyone that knows people from there know we speak at 30 miles a minute. It's one of those things. So I've really like tried to speak slower. and it was really hard to do. But that video, I think the content of that video is fine. And my biggest complaint is just I speed ran the recording. So, but the information's there. I think that's the important part. It's doing fine, but really fun video to make. The community was super happy that someone made the video for them. And I'm a humongous Earthbound fan. If you've ever seen my streams, there's a humongous Earthbound flag behind me. Like I had the thought, like, I was born to make this video and I'm gonna make it. And once I made it, that I'm like, okay, I like making videos a lot now, so let's just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting video. I recommend that everyone kind of check it out. It's you know, there aren't a lot of solid world record progression. I like to call them histories, but there's not a lot of world record progression style videos out there. So the ones that get made by their own community, those are like honest interpretations, right? Like they're pretty good. But
Yeah.
it's like they're just it's a small pool. So it's like this is something that I think a lot of people it's a good video and it's one that I think people would really like, but just people haven't been served it by the algorithm. So it's I feel your frustration. It's a good video. It's one that people should watch for sure. I wish that you had more views.
Hey,
I'm upset for you.
I wish you guys had more views too. Like your Donkey Kong video was phenomenal, and I think it's sitting around 55K right now. And I'm just thinking like more.
Yeah,
get to 100K.
It was a good video. It was we're really happy with it too. We're happy with the performance that it did, and you know we know that one day, for whatever reason, and we don't know what video it'll be, the thing is just gonna go.
Yeah.
Right? It's just gonna click, it's just gonna snap into place. One video is gonna catch fire, and we're just in the meantime making good content before that happens. So
see that's where I think you guys have a huge advantage, because you stuck with this like documentary style content. It's like once you have one video that blows up, people are gonna see like, oh, they have a bunch of this stuff on their channel, and they're just gonna watch from there.
Yeah,
the wildfire will spread.
It's nice to have only one kind of video on your channel. Like that's if you can afford to do that, that's a great thing. Because then you know exactly what the people want. The people tell you they like your content, they like all of it.
Yep.
Right? Even the stuff that people don't really watch. I think that, you know, there is a little bit of a balancing act. I think there's a little bit of a trap that some people fall into. Like, the people that watch GDQ when it's on the front page of Twitch, those people are not necessarily speedrunners. They're people that show up for GDQ. They know that it happens once or twice a year. They show up, they're happy to be there.
And they might not necessarily watch streamers that speedrun. They might just be, well, their only exposure to speedrunning might be GDQ. They might not move past it.
That's most of them, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing is very much true of the largest content creator in this like subgenre of speedrunning content, Salt.
Yeah, the OG.
He has so many views. And the people that watch don't necessarily watch other speedrunners, or they watch sort of in a reasonable facsimile to what he puts out. Right? So like they might watch, they're going to go watch Arcus now, right? They're going to go watch Lack Attack. They're going to go watch, you know,
Tom Vodova.
Yeah, they're going to go find Tom Vodova.
Yeah.
They're going to go watch SBD Wolf, right? So there's little things like that. But they're not really speedrunning like consumers in the way that people that really enjoy it are. And so that's kind of tempered our expectations, is like, hey, listen, man, we're down with the homies. That's who we're making the content for. People that enjoy it. Can't make content for people that don't want to watch it.
Yeah, no, with the Earthbound video, and as we get to the DKR video, I told the communities, I'm like, my number one like goal right now, or I shouldn't say goal, but like one of the pillars of like this video is like make the community happy, because like without you guys consulting on this and giving your time to help me get this straight, the video would just be like several degrees of quality worse.
Yeah, exactly. We make the videos, and before they go out, we have people who we worked with tell us, we love this video, we own the video, we're happy with it. Before anyone else ever sees it. And they don't come out until people are happy. So, totally agree. That's the best way to make your content.
I think so, yeah. Like, I always have a consultant with Earthbound. I had, well, it says right in the credits that I put in, like, Andy, Orlex, Serium, and I think, and
Yep.
was it James? Yeah, James. Like, those are the consultants for that one. Diddy Kong Racing, like, those guys are right there. OBO, Trident Tail, Giz. It's right there up front. They consulted on this. Like, the video doesn't happen the way it happens without them. Because like some things in the history just aren't written down anywhere. It's like, where's this skip from? Or like, why are they doing this? And it's just like, you can look and it's like, okay, I found the video, like the record before where it happens, and then the record after it happens. But there's like no documentation about like who found this, how they found it, or anything like that. It's just, it exists within the community's knowledge, but it's not written down anywhere.
Right.
So like without the guys consulting, you don't get those little anecdotes that just make it that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely, things get lost.
Yeah.
Right on.
It's like, that's a good point too. Like preservation of history and runs. Like doing the Earthbound video, like I mentioned earlier, there's like nothing from Japan, and that's part of the history. Like those runners were actively running the game, but there's no videos. All that's left is like some times and like the rules they use for the category. I couldn't find them. Like if they're there somewhere on that website that I couldn't find. So it's a shame.
Oh yeah, it's not easy. Like I said this when we were doing, I don't remember what video it was, but you know, there's people have caught up on this, have picked up on this thread of, but the Japanese were doing this the whole time, and they're like, how did they not know? It's like, okay, one, it's in Japanese. Two, it's hard to navigate if you, spoiler, don't speak Japanese.
Yep.
We had someone who had gone through meticulously and combed through, you know, fortunately for us, DKC2, it was masterfully, the history of which was masterfully prepared by Kryptonberry. Phenomenal notes, phenomenal attention to detail. But he was able to do that because that community actually had leaderboards that they maintained on Nico Video. That's like a 1 in a million. When you're doing any other game, it's like, okay, yeah, they're playing Kirby Air Ride. You said this earlier. Are they playing with the same rules? Are they playing the same category? Is this a 40-minute garbage attempt? Is this a 40-minute attempt of 100% that's using tech that we have no idea how they use it? And also, it's not just enough to know that they did it if you can't find anyone to talk about it, or if the community doesn't know how it works.
Yep.
It's like, you could find a skip in like some you could find the skip in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for the SNES, which lets you credits warp in the beginning of the game. But are you gonna know what that looks like the first time you see it? Hell no. So it's like language barrier, you know, a difficult to use website because it's not like riding a bike. And then also just like, okay, fine, you found it, but now you have a video, you have no idea how to verify you have no way to check the veracity of it. It could say that it's the world record, you don't really know.
Yep.
And, oh, by the way, anyone that ever used that site 20 years ago is, like, in their 30s now and isn't checking their DMs.
Exactly.
So, it's a real reservoir, and it has a lot of value, but you'll go insane looking for treasure in that forest.
Yep. No, like you said, it's a reservoir, but it's full of muddy water. Like, you're not finding anything there easy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little off color, but I remember we used to drive by the reservoir by my house. I remember my sister saw a bird shit in the reservoir and she was like grossed out by it. And my dad goes, that's like, there's like a million like gallons of water in this body of water. Yeah, bird shit in the reservoir, but it's like, what are you going to do? Dredge the reservoir? Like there's a reasonable amount of bird shit in your water. It's like, that's the good stuff. There's a reasonable amount of good stuff in this massive body of water. Are you going to dredge the whole website? Are you going to dredge the reservoir to get the bird shit out? No.
No,
Like,
the answer is no, because the video has to come out eventually. I can't spend 3 months researching this one 5-minute
Yep.
part. So
you nailed it. We could spend all day. I want to hear you talk about at least Diddy Kong Racing,
okay,
and then a little. If we can get there, I'd love to hear you talking about your Mario Kart series.
sure. Okay, so Diddy Kong Racing. So after Earthbound, I made the one like quote unquote drama video I've ever made. I don't. Anyway, if you want to go into that one, we can. I'll make it quick. It was
All right, 3 minutes or less.
done. All right, here's the quick version. I saw two things I thought would make a cool video. There were two glitches being considered in A Link to the Past in the No Major Glitches category. They were found by Yuzuhara. There was one in Ice Palace, which is the thumbnail for the video, where you can use the cane of Samari to clip through a wall, and another where you just jump through some water to the floor below without engaging with the water. And oh, that's pretty cool. And then the community had a vote, and it was a close vote, but they voted to keep those glitches out. And anyway, I won't get into like the fallout and everything that happened there. But I thought, like, man, I don't see like why these shouldn't be in the game, because it's no major glitches, and it's not like they're going out of bounds in the level. Like, they're on the same screen, they're just clipping through a wall, and they already did it with hammer jump anyway. But so I thought that's pretty cool. And then this was like the more, I don't want to call it egregious, but like this was the more interesting thing, I guess I'll say, is Super Mario Sunshine decided to use a hacked file where you would just cut out watching the opening cutscenes. And I thought, like, that seems that I'm like, that could make a precedent that would just, well, what else can we cut out in the sake of time? And I'm like, yeah, it sucks. You have these like 5-minute opening cutscenes to watch, but at the same time, it's like we're editing the game's data to do whatever. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I said I'm gonna make an opinion video, so I made an opinion video. It's much like the top 10 video. I don't know if I'll do another one, because they're not like, I'm not telling a story. I'm just telling about like why I like or don't like something.
Right.
That's not really the style of content I like doing. But like, I wanted to stretch my my muscles in like some other direction to see like what it would be, and I didn't know until I finished it. Like, not really the kind of content I want to make. So then Diddy Kong Racing. Let's move on to there.
Yep.
Big fan of that game. Loved it as a kid. Played the living shit out of it. And like the way I select what games are going to make world record progressions about, there's a few different like criteria I put off. Like, first, I'll evaluate how many world records it has. And like, if a game in the last 10 years just had like 3 records, there's not much of a story to tell there.
Very true.
It's hard to tell. The fewer records on the leaderboard, the harder of a story is. If there aren't many like time jumps, like large gains of time due to like skip discoveries, the only story is the runners got better, and that's hard to like explain. Like, I thought about doing a video before the Diddy Kong Racing one on the world record progression of the bench press, because to me, like, just the wow factor of the amount of weight and steroids. Actually, I shouldn't say steroids, because I don't want to get sued by anybody. Anyway, just the amount of weight that those guys are moving alone, even though it only goes in increments, like very small increments in a later day, like in recent times, it's insane. So I thought like there'd be a good story to do there, but like, good luck letting ESPN have you use any of their footage. So I decided against that. So then I'm like, okay, well, Diddy Kong Racing, it's by nature, there's not much I have to explain about this run to the viewer for them to understand, because it's a racing game. They already know the objective is to go as fast as you can.
Yeah,
so
gotta go fast.
Very easy to communicate what's going on. What are the interesting points about it? It's got an overworld, for one, as a racing game. That's kind of cool. And there is some overworld abuse that goes in. Like one of Twofool's runs, he clipped out of bounds in the overworld. And it's a route not many people use, but he used it in a world record. So like, it is something you can do. So it checked off a few boxes right there. 2, I'm interested in the game. Like, I watched a Stream Monster. Like, I love watching OBU and Tried and Tails to run that game. It had a pretty decent history. It had a big showing at GDQ. There's a lot of like cool little tidbits. The record holders that have held the record have went on to set dynasties. Like, Giz held the record for like 6 or 7 records in a row. Same with Obio. Before that, Twofool. And then like just how it became a speed run was like so insane. So actually, this is back in the SDA days, Speed Demos archives, where Stefan Marla, I actually talked with him for this video. He's a German player that did this back in like 2006 or 7. He wanted to do a 100% run of the game to show it off to SDA, but they wouldn't let him upload it just as a 100% run because they said, well, this isn't really 100% because you're not like SDA had some really dumb rules. Like, spoiler alert for anyone that wasn't around back then, including myself. They had some really dumb rules back then. So for the one, he wanted to do a 100% route, but they said, well, and he wanted to use TT, but they're like, well, we're not going to let you use TT unless you unlock him. So the any percent run came about because he was forced to do it for SDA rules, so he could do a 100% route. Maybe I got that backwards now. But
no, yeah, there was a rule that you couldn't do a run of like New Game Plus or anything that you would get from beating the game.
Yeah.
Unless you also did an any percent run.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That's what happened. So he was forced to do the any percent run to unlock TT so that he could do the 100% run. Mm-hmm. So that's there. And it's like his SDA run's still there. If you go on there, you can read him say that specifically. He's like, this run came about by accident. So that was really cool. And then from there, you had some other guys like run it. And the history really picked up. Like once the guys that were really dedicated to 80% started running it, they'd set record after record. But the cool thing is, anybody that established a dynasty and they lost their record, they'd always come back and take the record at least once, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that game had a really crazy history, and it had some really hype moments in it. And the route was the hardest thing to explain. The biggest challenge of that game was like, how do I explain the route? Because they found this glitch where if you use an airplane in Hot Top Volcano and fly out of bounds and go underneath the finish line, it warps you to the overworld. And you're thinking like, oh, well, that you're not finishing the race, so like, how powerful can that be? Well, here's the cool thing: if you do a trophy race in the first area, and you're in Hot Top Volcano, which is the last race before you win the trophy race. If you fly out of bounds on that level, you'll respawn in the overworld with the trophy race still active. So if you go to another world and complete a trophy race, it'll give you credit for the trophy in that world.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but then the interesting thing is with the overworld, the game gives you a chance of spawning in either the overworld proper, where Taj the genie is, or it puts you in Dragon Forest with the car or the plane.
Okay.
So like what vehicle it gives you and where it spawns you affect the route massively. And it's one of those things. It's like, well, how do I explain like this quantum level determinacy stuff to a viewer? And it's like, well, I copped out a little bit because I'm like, well, here you guys go. Here's a flow chart that I'm going to link you to if you really want to know like what's going on here, because I could spend another like 20 minutes explaining this.
You gave them a flow chart.
Well, that's what the community have. Like the community have a resource for runners. It's like, if you're wondering like where to go after you execute the skip, because you do the skip 4 times. So that's 4 times of getting different various spawn locations and vehicle combinations. It's like, here's what you do. So I'm like, well, if they're using a flow chart, then I guess the viewers can use one too. So it was just the easiest thing to do because there's so much information there. Like I didn't know how to present it visually. I knew just trying to talk them through it would be way too much. So I just gave them the basics. I'm like, you have a 12% chance of getting spawned here, 12% chance of getting spawned here, and a 75% chance of getting spawned here. There you go. Depending on when that happens and what vehicle you have, it will influence where you go next in the run. So really fun one to do though. Like I remember I had calls with Giz till like 1, 2 a.m. some nights just talking about the game and whatever. That was really fun video to make.
Yeah, it's a really good video. Again, that one's a little over an hour. I wish people would. I wish you all the luck. Go watch this video if you're listening. Go watch that video.
Fun
History
one.
of Diddy Kong Racing World Records. And then talk to me about this 2-hour monster that you have here.
Oh boy. Yeah. So this one, This one was crazy. So back in March, I follow the Mario Kart scene pretty closely. Back in March, I noticed that like a string of tweets came out from the Mario Kart Twitter saying like Daniel Burbank has just set something like 30 records in the NTSC categories. Like for those that don't know, Mario Kart 64 time trials are broken down into two. Well, they're broken down to a bunch of categories. Like there's skips and non-skips, 3 laps and fast laps. But if you're looking at 3 laps and fast laps, there are 2 times listed. There's your PAL time and your NTSC time. So PAL's for like European consoles, NTSC's for North American consoles. And PAL runs a little bit slower than NTSC, so it's easier to play on PAL, and which also means that NTSC isn't as optimized because it's a higher frame rate. So Dan set like an insane amount of records on the NTSC categories. He just went nuts. I'm pretty sure he became NTSC champion through doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just insane. I'm like, well, there's obviously a story there. So I started looking into it, and I thought like, that's pretty cool. He's like set all these records. And then I thought like, well, wait a minute. He's only the NTSC champ. So if I look at the leaderboard, I'm like, because I've talked with Matthias before. Matthias had been interviewed for the This Week in Speedrunning podcast. So I'm like, well, these guys have been 1 and 2 for like the last 10 years. So I started looking at it more and more, and I'm like, they've had some really close battles on a lot of tracks. And I sent a message to him. I'm like, I want to do a video on your recent like NTSC domination. And Dan's like, cool. And then I got going into it, and I'm like, I said, I want to do a video on your guys's like the tracks you guys have fought over. And then I thought, wait a minute, I'm gonna do a track on their entire rivalry because there's like a ton of content here that goes back like a decade and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking into it. Like, Matthias, when did you start? Like 2008, 2007. He started playing. Like, the big top dog then was Michael Jongerius, MJ, as the community called him, who like you could do a whole video on MJ and the stuff that he did and the stuff he dealt with as champion, because like there was the Hoblitch or Hobrich, I can't remember, but there was 3 players that banded together under one name to take records from MJ.
Okay.
And like, yeah, like, but no one knew this. They thought this was just a single player that was a new guy. They didn't know it was 3 guys pretending to be someone. Yeah. So there's that. And I didn't talk about that in the video because it wasn't a video about MJ, but like MJ was like, he seemed to be unbeatable from the community. This was in the days before you had like Discord calls or anything like that. Most of the communication was done either through Skype or forums. MJ would mostly just post his times on the forums and not have much interaction with the community. He did show up to some of the Euro meets though. I'll get to that. So a lot of cool stuff happened throughout the history of that. So I looked at Matthias's history, and then Dan showed up around 2012, 2013, and they went to war right away. Like Dan improved at a rate. I think he achieved, like, Matthias took, I think, 3 years to achieve the rank of God, which is just in Mario Kart 64. Every track has rankings of times that you can get, and once you're above a certain time, you're a god on that track. So if you get a god time on every track, then you're a god for the PAL category or whatever.
Yeah.
So like Matthias did it in I think a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Dan did it in like 6 months or something like that. I say in the video, I don't remember exactly how long it was, and like that's just how the history of that rivalry went. Is like, okay, Dan gets his first world record on a track at a time when Matthias is trying to close out him sweeping the leaderboard for all of time trials, having the record for the 3 lap and the fast lap on every track. And Dan just comes off and says like, nope, you're not getting it on this track. I believe it was Mario Raceway. Then they went to war. It might have been Frapp Snowland, actually. Then they went to war on Mario Raceway. So that, like, the story just tells itself. It's like, all right, you've got a good time here. Well, I'm going to beat it. And that's how it went. And then there's obviously the live meetups. So the Euro meets and the Virginia meets. Key distinction between the two. The Virginia meet focuses mostly on the 4-player Grand Prix versus mode. The Euro meet has like a ton of different, like they'll do last man standing, time trials against each other, versus mode. They even have battle mode. They do a lot of different categories. Matthias has won the overall meet every year he's attended. He's just incredibly dominant kart player. The one time he went to Virginia in 2017, he won that meet too. He's just incredibly dominant player, and like the stories are just there to be told. It's like they have this insane rivalry, and then once or twice a year they'll meet up at these live meets and go to war again. So that story's there, and then like when Matthias gets close to closing out the sweep, well, like Matthias said it himself. Like if you watch the video, he says it himself. He's like, the second time he got close to beating the sweep, he had one track left to get record on, and it was Donkey Kong Jungle Parkway 3-lap, and some new tech had been discovered on it. Like they figured out a way to route in another mini turbo. So like the record was just dropping. Dan had pushed it down one night. And one night, Dan had pushed it down, and Dan even says this. It was a night he normally doesn't stream on, but he just felt like streaming. He set a new record, and Matthias started playing that night too after Dan was done. And Matthias PB'd, but his PB wasn't by enough to beat Dan. So had Dan not streamed on that night, Matthias would have gotten the sweep.
Wow.
Which, yeah, it's just like absolutely insane stuff like that. And Matthias will talk about how like the video that Goose made, he's like, normally my channel gets like X amount of viewers. And then after Goose made that video that got 500,000 views, I had like hundreds of people coming to my channel saying like, are you going to get the sweep? Are you going to get the sweep? And he's just like, it's so much pressure to deal with. Like once that happens, and he didn't end up getting the sweep. He hasn't got it yet. And then like the hardest thing I've ever had to do as a video editor or like someone that tells these stories is during this video, as after I'd started writing the script and researching it. And you can see this in the end of the video, the unhoarding. Dan became the overall champion by hoarding a bunch of records. And what that means is he set records but didn't release them to anybody. And he waited until a time when he had all the records, enough records in his possession that he would be champion when he released them all. And he released them all in this like meme style video with these other two guys. And it caused a storm in that community. As what Matthias almost retired after that happened. He is champion again. He got it back, but you want the full story, watch the video. It's like just the amount of stuff that happened, especially like during production. Because I'm like, how do I? For one, like my biggest problem is like, how do I cover this without like looking like an asshole? Because I'm like, there's no way I can make Dan look like a good guy after he's just done this. Like it's like, and I don't mean like he's an evil person or anything like that. It's just like in the narrative of that video, it's like, how do I present this fairly and favorably? And that's actually what led to it becoming the documentary style video that it is. Because I said, well, for the end of the video, it was originally, there was no interviews for it. But I said, the only way I can do this fairly with like this unhoarding thing is if I have Dan talk about what he did and then have the community like react. So that's what I did. And I said, well, if I'm going to do it here, it doesn't make any sense to do it just in this one part. I might as well do it for the whole video. And that's how you got the Rivals video for Mario Kart 64.
Yeah, it was a great video.
It's my favorite. I think it's like the best one I've done of the ones I've made. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, they're all pretty great videos in their own right. So I won't pick my favorite, but I will say we do have to wrap up pretty soon. But I want to plug you a little bit.
Sure.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, you can find Abyssoft on Twitter. He is at Abyssoft. That is ABYSSOFT. His YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Abyssoft. Same spelling. And his Twitch. Spoiler alert, it's Abyssoft. ABYSSOFT. If you've enjoyed the guest, go check out his videos. I highly recommend the world record history for DKR, Diddy Kong Racing, which we talked about at length, the Earthbound video, and the Rivals video. It's an hour and 45 minutes. It's a bear of a video, but it's totally worth it. Is there anything else that I forgot to plug that you want to mention really quick?
I think that's all of them.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for your time, sir. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the podcast, helping us grow, sharing, giving me your feedback. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And tune in next time where we have another really exciting guest from Pokemon. That'll be my little tease, little Pokemon speedrun action coming at you next week. So Stay tuned for that. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your night.